And once again, I want to say greetings to each and every one of you, Aquaba, and welcome. Welcome to another round of the Mastermind here on LIBRadio, LIBTV here on livinginblack.com. My name is Kedia Wadu, aka The Conscious Rasta. Weekday, Sundays, I should say. We get together with you and we deal with culture, consciousness, historical perspectives. We deal with entertainment, economics, education, health, labor, law, politics, religion, family, conflict, future studies, all areas of human interactivity and development. Today's date is Sunday, the 15th of February, the year 2026 in the Western Gregorian calendar. This corresponds to the year 6266. To which we have realigned our cultural clock. Welcome to the 7th millennium. You have found your family in a place of peace and prosperity. On your favorite, we aim to be your favorite. We are LIBRadio, LIBTV. We are living in black.com. And what a joy, what a joy, what a joy it is to be with you today. On your favorite, we aim to be your favorite. Let me bring in my co-host. It's a pleasure to have you with us as always. Brother Junius, we have you in the house. Aquaba, welcome. How are you today, my brother? I'm not hearing you. Okay, my speaker is working. You want to go through and check your settings again. And oh, let me add you to the stage. Let's try this one more time. I'm sorry, that was my bad. I have you up, Papa Juniors. How are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good, except for I just missed that last button. I apologize for that. Probably threw
No
you off
problem.
after the last confusion we had last week.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to
Well,
be.
here we go again.
Yeah, here we go again. I need to do this. I need to turn off this. I have a color screen which will allow people not to see through my beautiful garment today, which I do have green in it. So, okay, we're back and we're bold. And Dwara, I think Dwara will be with us today. I didn't get a note from him saying otherwise. Usually he's very, very good at allowing us advance notice. Um, where do we begin? There's a lot of things going on. We usually like to take some notes out, what's happening in the political world, what's happening with our continent, our people, so very important. Culture becomes very important. I have become alerted to the culture of South Africa appears to be under a lot of pressure. And I'm wondering if this is pushback from the dispute between Cyril Ramaphosa and Donald Trump, the people of South Africa, and the people of the former colonizers of South Africa and, America.
Well,
So,
it's more to it than that. It's more. Remember, was maybe about 2 years ago, I think. South Africa was the only nation that had enough courage and moral fiber to actually take an initiative against Israel and their genocide against the people of Gaza. So I think all this, anything directed at South Africa, either is indirectly pushed by the Khazars or it's something that is direct. And I've noticed that they haven't gotten a whole lot of positive press, at least here in the West. So I think that's one of the reasons behind it.
I think you are right. I can recall the contrast between South Africa and the U.S. going back to even the Obama administration, when through collaboration of Barack Obama and his lying Secretary of State, U.S. was dragged into an attack on Libya. And if you can recall, South Africa was somewhat a supporter of Libya. That support of Libya should have come up much much stronger now, but I think all of us in hindsight would do things different then to see Libya collapse. But Libya did put much of its gold, from my understanding, on airplanes and flew it to South Africa. Do you recall that story?
I'm not that specific piece I'm not familiar with, but I do know that one of the reasons they went after Gaddafi was he was planning to initiate a gold-backed dinar, which would be an African currency. He was also planning to be very engaged in bringing and sharing technology with the various African nations, telecommunications, satellite technology, as well as moving toward a more collaborative effort continent wide. So quite naturally, he had to go.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at a couple of stories up for today from South Africa, and they relate specifically to culture wars. Now, this one is taking place in South Africa. And when you talk about the impact of social media on the future of Africa, I think this story we have to take seriously from South Africa. I got this from allafrica.com, one of our favorite go-to websites for news and information on the continent. The title, Africa Relooted, the video game where players steal back African artifacts. This was originally posted up Radio France Internationale, February 15, 2016, 2026, so that would be dated today. A video game released this week by a South African company features characters from the African continent whose objective is to reclaim artifacts looted by colonizers from Western museums and bring them home. A playful take on a timely political topic. This isn't just a heist, it's a rescue mission. The trailer for Relooted tells its audience. So that on one side of the culture war, and again, it's a game. It's intended towards children. But could this game be sowing in the children's minds something that we would want them to do, to go back, not to steal, not to loot, not to heist, but to take a significant effort, even if it takes generations, to bring home African artifacts?
Well, keep in mind, games are embedded and imbued with values and ideas. You know, chess is a game, but values, it's about strategy. It's a sense of, even a sense of war, actually. And it has significant meaning because the aggressors are the whites. The whites always start off and they always attack. So it's not just a game. It's about ambition. It's about, in this case, challenging the worldview and challenging the history of African people. In other words, what happened to us? So now they have a game that encourages the participants to right the wrongs, to undo the injustices, to take back that which was stolen from us. So it's not just a game.
Yeah. And I'm kind of torn between this because on one hand, I see the return of these artifacts very, very critical to our future, to our children's future. This is their inheritance ultimately. And if they should choose to steal it back, I think that the good could come out of it. But at the same time, our children, this is a fantasy. And by getting this fantasy of being an international thief, we see all these movies coming out on a regular basis. Your Ocean's 11 in 1,000 different versions of it, of people ganging up to steal valuable things. Ultimately, our youth will get caught. I mean, what becomes of our youth who go to the British Museum, the German, the Berlin Museum, the Paris, the Louvre, and all of these other um, great museums, and start to steal?
Well, again, unfortunately, we get caught up in the mindset and the ethos of the European Urugu.
Mm-hmm.
So we're witnessing now that mindset where they have taken off the mask, the veneer. So Donald Trump is engaging in just piracy in international seas, seizing ships, sinking ships, just bum rushing and bogarting a nation. And for young people to participate in a game like this is buying into the notion that might makes right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I mean, there are attempts to regain and reclaim the artifacts, but they've been
Mm-hmm.
primarily through negotiations. I know a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
Benin um, art and artifacts have been recovered, but that was through negotiation. I mean, there's no
Mm-hmm.
history, there's no real history or prolonged history anyway, other than say the Punic Wars, where Africans went to Europe to try to bum rush them or to steal their resources or what have you. That's
Mm-hmm.
just not the way we roll.
That's right. That's right.
And uh, making these games and programming and coding these games, what we're seeing is the codification of Urugu mentality. You know, might makes right. What's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine, and I'll take it anytime I want.
Yeah. And where they say possession is 9/10 of the
Nine
law.
tenths, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, there's a second story coming from South Africa, and I don't know if they are related, even though they could be related because of the dispute that you began talking about, the dispute over Palestine and the South African government. This second story, South African social media reveals contested battle over masculine norms by Melody Chironda. This is on allafrica.com. The National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence, which was released in 2020, pledged to combat harmful gender norms. Now, that gender norms, I'm kind of scared of that term. However, a new study reveals that the battle over what it means, quote, to be a man, unquote, is being fought online in real time with fractures on the front lines more than ever. Over the course of a year, the South African social media revealed a deeply contested conversation about what it means to be a man today. In a study of more than 2.1 million social media posts, it revealed that South Africans' concept of manhood is evolving in real time. Research conducted by the Center for Analytics and Behavioral Change indicates that conversations about masculinity are increasingly marked by emotional strain, financial pressure, and a backlash against men who challenge harmful norms. Now, on one hand, the abuse of women, the abuse of females, abuse of girls across Africa is a problem that we need to resolve over the long term. My problem with this is South Africa is already, the men in South Africa are already challenged in many ways, but South Africa does have the highest open gender confusion ratio of all of the African countries. So my concern is that Urugu, the Western civilization theme, the mode, is using South Africa as a leverage point to impose more of their social confusion over what it means to be a man. Your thoughts, your thoughts.
Well, based on what you said, they've gotten a toehold on the continent through South Africa. But as we pointed out numerous times over the years, through these various trade agreements, these various conferences, that is something that the West has attempted to, particularly America, has attempted to do for many years. One classic example is they pushed for the COVID vaccination. They pushed for so-called lessening of the rigidity in terms of gender roles. So they want more the glibid agenda to be embraced more in Africa. They want a relaxation of the biases against homosexuality and things like that. So while they may be succeeding more in South Africa, the goal is continental as a continental goal. They wanted to do all over, and like I said, we've seen it in these conferences. When we talked about the conference, I think the last conference that Biden had with several African nations, and some of the issues were under the rubric of human rights, tolerance for the glibid agenda. So that's something that they're pushing. Is something that thus far a lot of our brethren on the continent have pushed back against. They're resistant to, but we know Uhuru never backs up unless he's
they're relentless.
Forced. Yeah, they're relentless unless they're forced to.
That's right. That's a good point. I'm going to read a few comments that have come in. Let me say greetings to our LIBRadio audience. I'm getting a lot of comments on the Rumble channel. Brother Shabaka is in the house. Greetings, Baba, panel guests, and my amazing LIB family. You make my day. Thank you. That's wonderfully generous of you. Brother Juma is in the house. Good morning, brothers. Africa rising. For Africa One checking in. Hotep Mastermind panel and global LIB family. Ubuntu. I am because we are. Juma writes again. The pressure from the Democratic Party to control, no, that's the Democratic Alliance to control the Western Cape, if not all of South Africa, again, through capitalist systems. And he says the DA party, that's the Democratic Alliance Party. Nguvu is in the house. Peace and blessings, LIB family. Silver Oracle is in the house. I don't think we've heard from you before. Welcome to the family. Greetings to the global LIB family. Great to have you with us. And he says, good afternoon to the mastermind panel. And I ask of the group, the panel, can South Africa lead a conversation on, quote, what it means to be a man, unquote. Comment from For Africa One, South Africa, the Rainbow Nation, question mark. Queen Mother Kashiba, I see you in the house. Hotep family. Kitty, will you please repeat the study that you mentioned last week about the birth control methods being promoted in Africa and the U.S. for black women? I need a copy of it. I'm going to email to you, and let me make a note to myself. Email to you, Queen Mother, the much deeper story there. Now, I have a surprise for everybody. On Tuesday, I will have a new book out. 2 books in about 3 weeks. And I'm going to send you a copy of the book, Queen Mother. Send a copy, and it'll be a little bit before I'm sending them out because I'm waiting. I'll have to get mine from the printer. Send a copy to Queen Mother Kashiba. So that's going to be coming at you. And the new book, I just saw it today. The printer says it's okay. It's ready to publish, and we're going to have it out. And I'm really excited. It's called Biocolonialism, and it deals with the assault on Africa. We did talk deeply about that last week, What's the name of the book? The book is called Biocolonialism. The where's the title of the book? Oh, the Technocratic War on African Fertility and Food. Robert Junius, I've been busy over here.
Yeah, it's good that you include the term technocratic because there are elements within the overall community, the general population community, that are using this term. But for the most part, most of our people, I would say, most Hispanics, and even most of Europeans, Euro Americans, are not familiar with technocracy and what it's about. And
Mm-hmm.
what we're seeing in this as this, it's no longer a slow incremental push. Now it's a rapid pedal to the metal type of push. It's all driven by technocracy. Obviously, it's driven by greed and a whole psychopathy. But I'm sure your book is going to talk about technology and how the technology has been included in the bio medical sphere, and because that is what is happening around the world, particularly with big pharma and DARPA and the medical MARPA or whatever it is. It's the scientific or medical equivalent of DARPA. When you look into what they're into, it's scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we've got to react very seriously at this point because, as you said, it's scary. Our people are going to have to pay attention. I came across this picture just yesterday, and I'm going to share it with you right now. I'm adding this to the stage. You see that picture? That is Femi Abedole. Let me get this name right. I need to make the picture larger. One sec. Where are we? Where are we? Where are we? Here we are. This picture features Femi Otedola, who's prominent in Nigeria, Beelzebub Gates. Of course, you know who Beelzebub is. And I kind of added that Beelzebub to Beelzebub Gates. The president of Nigeria is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and there is Aliko Dangote on the far right. These are very powerful men, except for one of them is not Nigerian.
Yeah,
Bill
it's like one of
Gates.
those tests we used to get. One of these is not the same, and you have to find the one that's
Now
no. But
they
I mean,
all.
the thing
No, go
is,
ahead, continue.
our people throughout the world, primarily diaspora and Africans, need to be clear, like you called him Beelzebub, clear on what Bill Gates is about. He is about eugenics and global depopulation. He's about what they call philanthrocapitalism. They're making money under the guise of being philanthropists, when the Greek word philanthropy means lover of humanity. They're not lovers of humanity. They are misanthropes. They hate humanity. And so we need to be clear on that and look at his history around the world, but specifically in Africa and Asia, and what his goals and objectives are, and stop holding him up as some kind of hero.
No, he's not a hero. And so many references to Bill Gates' malfeasance around the world. So many references. I did include an appendix with all of the references that I could find talking about his malfeasance. And The references are overwhelming. Now, here is a copy of my new book, 60-second book out. I'm very proud of this. I've kind of I've gone back to much of my roots as investigative journalism. Of course, some would call it conspiracy research. I have no problem with that because I understand what conspiracy research and what it's about. But investigative journalism is what we would prefer to have our craft called. Isn't that true?
Yes, or just truth,
Yeah.
being consistent with my art, truth, and painting an accurate picture of reality, specifically
Mm-hmm.
in times like this where you have AI, computer generated images, and the technology to blur the lines between what's real and what's fake. And we see it every
That's
day. We're
right.
going to see it even more and more as AI becomes more and more intrusive.
Mm-hmm. And what I did in putting this book together, I specifically went for only verified resources for making the book. I verified things more than one way, and you come to kind of a junction point where you say, well, yeah, I can put 90%, 95% credibility in this particular source, et cetera, et cetera. So we are at a crossroads. I heard you mention a little bit earlier, and I completely agree. It's a very, very serious situation, and it could be frightening. I want to frighten everyone to action. So, therefore, this is the book that's coming out. I'm very proud of it. I worked right up until yesterday evening putting it all together. It was a lot of work, and I work nonstop. You may have heard me say earlier that I'm on a new program for this year, and for March, and for February and March, I'm doubling my working hours, and so this reflects the fact that this book comes out in about in 2 weeks since I really started it, but it really reflects 4 weeks because I was doubling my working hours, and it's a little hard, but it is very rewarding. I do encourage everybody out there, find your niche, find what you do so well, and double your efforts for a period of a month or 2 months and put as much impact as you can on the world. We will all reap the benefits thereof.
Well, that's a major challenge because the way this system is set up, the ruling class, the ruling elites set the system up to enrich themselves. They came, you're talking about biocolonialism. Well, European imperialism and colonialism was designed to enrich the ruling class, whether it was the
That's right.
popes, whether it was the collectivist trading companies, the monopoly and chartered trading companies, or the monarchy. They came here, and so most of what we believe about the world is not true. For example, if you they just played again Ken Burns's Revolutionary War. So if you look at that, you see certain things, and if you bring an African perspective to it, you're seeing that what you had was a familial spat between the colonialists who eventually wanted to self-determine and have their own, uh, wanted to control the bailiwick. And Ken Burns points out that they always had designs on this whole continent. That's why they call themselves the Continental Congress, Continental Army. And I'm saying all this to say it gets back to Urugu again. What's mine is mine. What's yours is mine, and I can take it whenever I want. Might makes right. So all you're pointing out in this is a recycling of that mentality, or a reiteration of that kind of mentality. Only they're using different technology. Before it was ships, and they brought their pillage, plunder, and vandalism history, you know, uh, when you really study European history, getting beyond the lies about Greece and Rome, when you look at most of the people that we see who are European today, they're not the Greeks, they're not Romans. Most of them have their direct ancestors are the Huns, the Goths, the Visigoths, the Franks, the Jutes, the Vandals, all of those people that they themselves call barbarians. We haven't said that. We haven't given that designation. That's what they say they were. And they are, when these people trace their roots, that's who they're talking about. They're not talking about the so-called civilized Greeks and the semi-civilized Romans. And both of those definitions are false from my perspective. But we've been lied to. And the one good thing is, okay, we're in Black History Month, so here's an opportunity to set the record straight, tell the truth. It's not just investigative research. It's not just scientific promotion of information. We are telling the truth. We're reestablishing ourselves, our identity, because we've been lied to. What we're seeing is this major, just this colossal falsehood, a word that Amos Wilson used quite a bit, the falsification. This is a falsification of world history. It's the falsification of who we are. Out and out lies.
And what we are capable of.
Yeah, right. And what we have done, what we've accomplished in 300 and some thousand years.
And a very falsification of our level of intellect. To this date, there are people out here promoting the idea that African intellect is that of primates. The president of the United States posting out this racist retweet of a video of Barack Obama and his wife turned into primates. That's not important to me. What is important are the comments from our listeners. Eddie, I see you checking in. He's on the YouTube. Ashe. He says to the LIB radio family, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. A few more comments have come in. And Queen Mother Kashiba, I'm going to be sending you the new book as soon as it's available. You've certainly become so very thankful. I'm so very thankful to what you have been with your many decades of support here on LIB Radio. A few more comments have come in. Queen Mother says, I believe it was a Bill Gates Foundation promoted program. Yeah, program is DMPA. And that stands for DEPRO. Oh, it's a long terminology. I'll have it in my mind shortly about that. But basically, it's Depo-Provera, updated, and they even changed the name. I'll have the name in the new book as well. And we're exposing it. A couple of comments have come in. Silver Oracle says, Baba Junius, are you referring to ARPA, the Advanced Research Project Agency for Health?
No, I'm talking about DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Programming Agency. That's the military arm. They're the mad scientists that are working on these exoskeletons that are supposed to give human warriors, human soldiers strength. They're the ones who are working on ways to minimize the human not consciousness, but conscious, so they can order their soldiers to go and slaughter people. Just go into your browser, just type in DARPA, DARPA. And then there's a medical version of that that's strictly, they're both scientific. I call them mad scientists, but the MARPA or BARPA is the biomedical arm, same thing. So check those out. Look at what they're engaged in. Look at how much money they're spending, and then look at what their objectives are, and then extrapolate that into the future.
Silver Oracle also asks, Do they hate humanity or specific regions and, quote, racial groups within humanity? It's hard for me to refer to it as hate because I think it goes much further. Personally, I try to eliminate hate because I think hate requires energy that takes that energy out of my creativity, even though it is hard not to hate. But we've had so many people tell us, wise people tell us, including Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela, that to hate is to waste our energy on something that ultimately corrupts our own selves. I believe, personally, I believe that hate leads to cancer, Baba Junius. That's just a theory that I've developed. I haven't really put that in the book, but we do know that hate consists of stress hormones, cortisol, and so therefore we can draw that bridge between hate, negative emotions, and the development of cancer. But I would say it's more than that. It's as if they live. Do you remember that movie, They Live?
Mm-hmm.
It starred
The
Rough and Rowdy. It
Keith,
was some
Roddy,
wrestler.
wasn't Roddy McDowell or whatever, and Keith, what's
No, it
his
wasn't
name?
Roddy McDowell. It was a wrestler. It was a rough and tough Rowdy or something like that. Rowdy Piper or something like that.
Yeah,
But
that's
the
it. Piper,
movie,
Piper. Yeah,
yeah, there were these
And David
aliens
Keith
living
was his
amongst us.
buddy.
Yeah. And there were aliens living amongst us, and you had to have these special sunglasses on. And once they discovered the sunglasses and put them on, they could then uncover where the aliens were. And it is as if these people are trying to disguise who they are. That's the only metaphor I can think of right offhand to say what's going on. But I don't know if they hate us or if they love us for our ability to be easily colonized for their benefit. Baba Juniors, do they hate us or do they love us?
I think it goes beyond that. It's they're psychopaths, and when you look up the
Mm-hmm.
characteristic of a psychopath, they have no remorse. So these people are the kind of folks that could drop atomic bombs on civilians. Nagasaki and Hiroshima were basically civilian cities. There was nothing military about them because the American Army Air Force had bombed all the military facilities and factories even prior to that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
they're the kind, when you look at Operation Northwoods, where the Cuban Missile Crisis and some of the stuff that the Joint Chiefs of Staff was presenting to John F. Kennedy in terms of how what they could do to set off a war using Cuba, or even looking at the situation now, how many people they've assassinated over the years,
Mm-hmm.
how many governments they've destabilized, how many economies they've plundered or just taken over. We just saw that. We're seeing it now with Venezuela. But more importantly, you have to look, when you look at their history, they did it to their own people first. These tribes
Mm-hmm.
that I'm talking about, the Gas, the Visigoths, the Ostrogoths, look at their model. I call it the Aryan model, how their leadership was predatory and abusive toward their own people, particularly their females. They've always had an issue with infanticide. Abortion is not new. It's just more benign. Before, they just would kill. It was called infanticide. Just look in
Mm-hmm.
the Bible, and I'm only
That's
bringing up
right.
the Bible because that's a common book. Everybody has a Bible in their, most people have a Bible in their house. They can look at it. That's not that it's a source of ultimate truth or anything, but you can see behavior. You can see human behavior. And so the truth of the matter is they have no love for their own people, the people at the bottom of the pyramids. The only reason
Mm-hmm.
that when you look at this country, look at the so-called indentured servants, and they call them, look at the white bonds people or the white slaves. Look at how they treated them.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
The only reason they gave them a modicum of respect and rights was because they were revolting against them.
That's right.
The
And they
black,
needed them to be on the team in order
right,
to
right,
control everyone else.
right. That's
Yeah.
exactly what happened. That's the history of policing. That's the history of what we call them, the patty rollers, the militia, the slave patrols, all of that. So, no, these are some sick people. They live. Their solution, their take on it was that there were these aliens masquerading as humans, and then when you put on the glasses, you could see them, or you could see the hidden subliminal messages all around that they were putting to use to make the humans work for them. And of course, this goes back to their talks about the Anunnaki and all of that. If you want, just type in your browser that and go look at what they say about that. But
Mm-hmm.
obviously, there is, and also as African people, we're clear. We would talk about people possessed by demons or possessed by spirits, but
Mm-hmm.
even on a more rudimentary level, you look at the Osirian drama, where it's like a story, but it's really about humanity. All of us are
Mm-hmm.
Hasar. All of us are Seth. All of us are Haru. Every day, the goal is
Mm-hmm.
for in our lives for us, the Haru, the hero in us, to put Seth in his place. So
And our
it goes
our
way back.
goal is to reclaim that heritage. That's a critical goal. That is the subject of my new book that was just out. In fact, I just received it just yesterday, my first shipment. So the new book is now available for anyone who wants to get it. You can go to consciousrastapress.com. You will see the new book out. I have it in hand, The Conscious Roots. It's entitled Growth, Heritage, and the Biology of Being. And what you're describing, this is our heritage. It's there for us to claim, but be careful claiming it. It's much, much more than just a superficial I am. We could, claim it rhetorically. No, we've got to claim it, and then we got to defend it and make it an offensive weapon to wage war against these spiritual imposters who live among us. I'm reminded of two books you were describing Urugu's behavior. That is, of course, the title of Marimba Ani's book. Urugu standing for the incomplete being is what it translates to. Or we could look at Michael Bradley's book, which I just put it up in the post, and he talked about the Iceman inheritance, the prehistoric sources of Western man's racism, sexism, and aggression. Michael Bradley is not a black conspiracy writer.
No,
He's an
he's been
anthropologist.
marginalized because he dared point out some of these obvious things about the Europeans' aggression. But he also has a book that we should be looking at, The Chosen People of the Caucasus. That he
Mm-hmm.
takes the Iceman, but he breaks it down to the Khazars and Ashkenazim, so you understand or overstand, as you say in your new book, what's going on, and identify them as players in this game theory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Chosen People of the Caucasus. I do definitely recommend, highly, highly recommend that. I'm going to put that up as well. And I do have a few more comments have come in. Silver Oracle writes, Baba Kitty's books and covers are always fire. I appreciate that. I really do. I work hard to do it. And people don't imagine how many hours spend tweaking a book cover, because a book cover says so much. And there's a lot of subtleness that goes on to a book cover. Queen Mother Kashiba. Thank you, Brother Junius. What we believe, much of what we believe about the world is not true. This needs to be repeated to all African people. Yes, 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 yes. Silver Oracle says, Bob Akiti, you're back on YouTube? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Yes. And they squeezed us out and we snuck back in. We didn't have to sneak back in. I had a second site. I had not been using it. And so they didn't discover what was on that site until it was too late. And they stopped censoring people for talking about health related issues. Queen Mother Kashiba asked this question: is Melinda Gates also guilty of this evil? It was the Epstein files that brought to my attention what the Gates, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation were doing. Now, it brought it to my attention, but then I asked a question. What critiques of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation are out here for me to examine? That's where the book, The Biocolonialism, comes from. So when we find out that they were knowingly testing these experimental injectable Depo-Provera made by the Pfizer Corporation, and as many as 74 million women around the planet taking it, they knew it raised lead levels, blood levels of 18%. They knew it was causing cancer in areas of the world where scanners for cancer and things did not exist. The medical systems were underdeveloped, and they knew it was terrible. It was terrible. I have a big chunk of the new book, and it's going to expose all this. Yes, yes, yes. Melinda Gates is as evil as we could tolerate. Now, I'm not suggesting anybody do anything about her being evil except for pray for her immortal soul. But yeah, she's evil. Going forward. Someone else said
But
Rowdy,
see,
Roddy Piper. Oh, you were saying?
Roddy. No, but see that question overlooks, and it's a good question because it
Mm-hmm.
forces us to look at Melinda. But I say,
Mm-hmm.
look at George Washington and Martha Washington. George
Mm-hmm.
Washington, and the reason I'm bringing him up is because I've been involved with the Attack Avenging the Ancestors Coalition. I'm not in the inner circle, but I've been supportive of it since its inception. And the Trump shut down the President's House Slave Memorial exhibit at 6th and Market Street in Philadelphia. So we've been demonstrating, going to court, et cetera, to get it back. The exhibit looks at the Robert Marsh mansion that George Washington used while he was the president of the United States when he was living in Philadelphia. Martha Washington was there. They brought 9 of their 300 and some enslaved persons there to serve them when they came. And I say that because Martha Washington, she was the one who had the enslaved people. He married her, and he became exceedingly rich because he married her, and she had the enslaved ancestors. She was just as
Mm-hmm.
ruthless in terms of administering an administrative role of that plantation as anybody else could be. And that was the same
Mm-hmm.
with all of them. So this whole notion that white people were dainty, white women were dainty, feminine, and just stylish and so kind and beneficent. Nah, thinking on a basic level that they were so trifling that they gave their babies to black women to suckle. That they just how lazy they were. You know, they call themselves men and women of leisure. They did no work. We did everything, including
That's right.
bringing massive mental and intellectual capabilities with us when we came here. And they exploited them through the enslavement process. So it's not just Melinda Gates. That tradition of her being a partner, even though the Urugu has always been kind of down on his females, they always had this, even when you study Greece and Rome and even some of the barbarian tribes, they always had this homosexual bent to them, and they were always beating up on their women. But nonetheless, they were just as ruthless as the male. And just do some research on enslavement.
I do completely agree. And we got to get over this idea that the benevolence of these people, of the women of the opposition, are what they are. When it comes down to the genocide by which the men captured this country, we don't have any evidence of the women opposing that in any great numbers. There's always been a number of liberal women, altruistic women, who have stood up for human rights, and we do acknowledge them as much as we can, but we have never really been able to rely upon them to protect our long-term self-interest. So I do agree. A few more comments have come in. I want to back it up and read here. Bear with me one sec. We have from Silver Oracle. I believe that Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, BARDA, merged with Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health, ARPA-H, in November or December 2025. That's good. That's good information. Thank you for sharing that.
Because I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, I was unaware as well. I heard something about this advanced research, biomedical research, but now that gives me more clarity, and it gives me a point where I can insert my fingers into the crack in the door and pull it apart and take a look and see what's in there. We do appreciate that. Queen Mother Kashiva, once again, she writes, tell how to purchase your books on the LIB website. They can go to my new website. Still a work in progress, but it's really looking good. It's the ConsciousRastaPress.com, www.ConsciousRastaPress.com, to find the books. And also, you can get the new book, Biocolonialism. I put up a link to that one itself, and I do have it in ebook version. If anybody wants the ebook, I'll put that link up here as well. But that's the paperback version, and I will have my hands on the first 4 copies of that on Tuesday evening. So by Wednesday, I'll begin shipping that out. But I am kind of shipping the first ones out to media. I've identified a number of media, as well as Brother Dr. Baruch, who's on the East Coast, the E-Life restaurant. I'm going to be getting copies in their hands. Probably the first shipment will go out. And we're going to do the best we can. I want everybody to be able to tell the story in detail, because the more voices we have telling the story of what the Gates Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, we've identified the British Agency for International Development, USAID, Pfizer Corporation, and some others, and I do specifically mention them, as many of them as I can identify in the book. We have to tell the story of what they're doing to us so that we ultimately can have our own health and political sovereignty for our future. We need that. We got to fight for it, Papa Juniors.
Right, and we have to become aware of what is going on, the games that are being played, the games that are afoot, because, like I said earlier, their objective is to blur the lines even further. They're big liars. They're propaganda and distortion, but they want it to be just totally crazy. I mean, take They Live and put it on steroids.
Yeah, very
See, the
important.
thing about they live, there was only a limited amount of glasses. Remember, only a small group of people had the glasses so they could see. And uh, Roddy's character was trying to tell people what was going on, and they wouldn't listen to him. That's what he and David Keith got into the fight. If you remember the movie.
Yeah, and that fight scene, was recorded as one of the longest fight scenes in a movie to that date. They fought for what, 15 minutes? It was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
but luckily, Rowdy Piper won the battle, and finally the brother could see what he could see. So, and it's a good movie. It's a kind of a cult movie at this point,
Hmm.
but it's still highly recommended. Because once you understand what's the movie saying, we now start to see it in real time all around us. That the billboards are saying one message, but there's a subliminal message there. And in the movie, with the sunglasses on, you could see the subliminal message right there in your face. Well, that's not that easy for us. We have to decode what is the subtle message.
Yeah,
And
not
and
only
the
decode
silver
the
oracle says,
messages, but they had to when they actually got together and started their revolt and their revolution, they had to
mm-hmm.
deal with those people who were compradors and collaborators with the aliens.
That's a very good point you make. Very good, good point. Excellent point. Um, that we've gotten through all of the comments. Let me see if there's any comments here on the um, YouTube. Not anybody there, but there's another story that I wanted to put on the table today. Let me see if I have it here. Um, no, I think we got through that. I got through. I only had, I guess, just those two stories and that picture. And I did show the picture of Femi Otedola, Bill Gates, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu of Nigeria, and Aliko Dangote of Nigeria, the richest black man in the world. And they all look too comfortable with this man amongst them. I call him Beelzebub. That's me. That's personal. You can
Well,
call
but
him what you
that's
want to call him.
well, that's some of those people would be comfortable at the World Economic Forum because
Mm-hmm.
that type of camaraderie is cultivated. Now, do they
Mm-hmm.
respect them? No, I don't think so. I think they're just using them for
Mm-hmm.
who they are and what they are on the continent, using their genius and their abilities and capabilities. But do they respect them? Do they consider them part of their in crowd, the inner group, the inner top of the pyramid? Nah, I don't think so.
Yeah. Good point.
I
Very
got
good
had
point you make.
a couple of small pieces I wanted to introduce today. The Pentagon announced it's going to send 200 troops to Nigeria as part of the U.S. African Command, AFRICOM. They're supposed to help fight the jihadist insurgents. Again, the propaganda is that these jihadists are attacking Christians, and so they're going to add 200 more troops and also train the Nigerian troops in counterinsurgency tactics. The other thing is the Kenya-Somalia border will open in April of this year after 15 years of being closed. This you can find this at the BBC.com, and it was closed because of the cross-border incursions of the jihadists. Notice the one common denominator, the factor in a lot of these stories. How they demonize Islam. It's always Islamic jihadists and terrorists and what have you. Not that I'm defending Islam or Muslims or anything like that. I am in the sense that none of them are that evil. They're just being used as the patsies. And last,
Yeah.
the two more things. AI intelligence, and AI was being called an AI intelligence explosion. We're at the point now where they're saying AI is creating itself. Each succeeding generation is faster, more efficient than the one before. AI is now coding itself, and the person who wrote the article, and I think you can find it at the Burning Platform. I think it's either the Burning Platform or Off Guardian. It's one of the two, where he talks about, because he's a coder and programmer himself, and he's talking about the rapid changes in AI being able to code itself. And my concern is that several years ago, they were coming up with a program for reentry, a court system and probation and parole department. So they went to AI. And what they found was that the programmers and coders were putting their biases into the program itself. So there were fewer blacks who were released because they automatically assumed, and through their coding, and they put it in the coding, that blacks would not be good candidates for release. And once, fortunately, they caught that and they were able to change it. But once it's programmed in there, after it goes through several iterations, it becomes part and parcel of the program's quote unquote DNA. And lastly, the Richmond Free Press and the Scanner out of Portland, Oregon closed. The Richmond Free Press, they closed after, I think, 30 years, and the Scanner closed after being in business for 50 years. So one of the things that we talked about last week was the decline of black media, conscious media. Now, I'm not familiar with these newspapers, but any loss, unless it's just an out and out propaganda mill or just part and parcel of the deep state, any loss of media, black media, is horrific from my perspective.
Yeah. We got to hang tough. We got to remain firm. And we got to claw with our bare hands and our fingernails to bring black media into into a new idea, a new concept. I think the journalists ourselves, maybe we need to have a confab, some sort of a gathering or a web portal or something's got to get us all on the same page. Robert Jr., do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, the thing is, it's the media, that vehicle. Our history has always been, it's been a struggle going back to Freedom's Journal. You know, one of the issues they had was sustainability and support. Now, they also had problems because they had disagreements. One felt, you know, it's hopeless here. I'm getting out. I'm going to Africa. The other one stuck it out. But that whole advertising model that the broadsides and the newspapers use and still use to this day is still in place. It's just shifted a bit because of technology, because of the internet, because of AI, because of some other things. And our challenge has always been to get support, whether it was advertising, subscription, benefactors, patrons, whatever you want to call it. It's always been a challenge. And you know full well from being in this for 20 some years.
Yeah. And it's been wonderful. It was a wonderful rise for many of those 20 years. Although, I'll be honest with you, it seems to have peaked and is now been in a precipitous decline for years. I think it's been declining around I've seen it maybe since about 2016. No, actually it was 2014, because in 2014 we actually almost quit. I did cut most of my broadcasts for the year, and we almost quit. But then after discovering Africa Rising, I came back and came stronger than ever, because Africa Rising ultimately would be the tide that would float all Pan African boats. But although it's been kind of up and down and up and down, personally, I love Africa Rising. It's kept me going.
Well, the thing is, I've experienced it within any number of newspapers that I used to write for in the Philadelphia
That's right.
area, even on the eastern seaboard. Almost all of them are gone, and even the internet radio stations I was involved with, LIB is the only one left. Now I think I wasn't directly involved with Brother Jamal, but we would have, and you would make arrangements so that Brother Jamal, yourself, Delani, the people from the Gap over in London, and Neil, we could all talk and have a program, a simulcast, a program under the rubric of the Digital Underground, which was my program. But you know, Gap is gone, Harambe is gone, the Blake Radio Network is gone. It's just you and Brother Jamal. Then, of course, we were flourishing when there was so few of us, when it was just the Black World Today, Don Rojas of the Black World Today. That's where I got started. Then it was Neil, then you came, then Delani came. Then you had this bursting of what were some of the streaming services that blew up so everybody could do Black Talk, that made it easier. Then there were several other 360 Live 365. So more and more people could get it into it in a diluted, not necessarily in a quality sense, but it made it more even, more democratizing of media access. So that's what we are now. We have all these splinter and what they call niche broadcasts and stuff, podcasts.
Is it money that we have been lacking?
I didn't hear you.
Is that why we can't seemingly compete?
Yeah, well, it's been difficult for us to compete on all levels of media because things change. I was looking at something the other day. They were talking about Hollywood, but they also talked about Micheaux and some of the other Black filmmakers. Well, Micheaux could compete until the technology changed. Some of these other companies could compete until sound came. Then when sound came, they couldn't compete anymore. Micheaux could compete early on, but then they didn't have the access because the studios had monopolies. They had their own theater. They had their own exhibition halls, whereas we didn't. And so that became a problem. And then, of course, I think once integration came, we tended to just give up and we want a validation from white people and just go along with them, not realizing we need to tell our own story.
That's right. And increasingly, the tools are being made available for us to tell our own story. Although it seems, from my perspective, that we have become so intellectually intimidated by the dominators, the technocrats dominating this society, is that, like you just said, we just give up. We sit on the sidelines just saying, blah, 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 blah. A litany of whole reasons why we choose not to get in there and compete. You know, I was teaching this series of conversations on our Thursday program, and I've suspended that for the African Hour Story months. I'm focusing on these books that I've read. But I was teaching how to use AI, and very, very few African people acknowledged that they were taking the class from me. Very few, maybe two people. I was really kind of teaching it to myself as I was teaching it to the larger community. And I learned that we could begin making these movies together, although with the tools that were available, although it did require a bit of money, but not nearly the millions and billions in budgets that mainstream movies require.
Well, but the thing is, I would suggest that do you have the video of those lessons still available?
Yeah, everything is up on the Rumble. There's
Yeah,
I
well,
think about
just
16 or 17 weeks of them.
yeah, well, just keep them up there. Let people download them or use them or watch them on their leisure.
hmm
One of
Yeah.
our problems is archival material. A lot of
hmm
our archival material has been destroyed, or somebody said, well, I got all this stuff in my garage. My father passed. I don't know what to do with it. I'm just gonna give it away, or I just throw it away, and we lose our history.
Yeah, yeah.
I had 10 years worth of cassette tapes of a program I did on terrestrial radio, and we had
hmm
some problems of water damage in one of the closets, and I threw them away.
hmm
Now, what I should have done was given them to the Bloxham Museum, but
hmm
hindsight is 2020.
Yeah. Well, we're going to do the best we can to keep everything moving, keep it all open, keep those archives coming up. Um, and of course, YouTube disposed of 20 years of my archives. And that was with my first website. But, it is what it is. We're going to do the best we can.
Yeah,
Let me
and
get a couple.
you were talking about YouTube disposed. Neil discovered this place. It was a precursor to the cloud, and they were going to
hmm
archive a lot of the Blake Radio Network's programming. So I uploaded a lot of my programs, and I should have just made copies of it and maintained it on a hard drive, but I gave it to these people through, as part of Neil's collection, and they went out of business, and we lost all our material.
Ouch. Ooh. Yeah.
Then lo and
Ooh.
behold, they have this thing now. Then years later, this thing called the cloud, which is
hmm
much more expansive than they were.
hmm Yeah. A couple of comments. I do see Queen Mother Kashiba. She writes, Black media is mostly entertainment and sports. And she is telling the truth.
Yep.
Now, can we use entertainment as edutainment? Can we use sports as game theory? Well, if we understand that most of what Black people are tuning into, insofar as Black source material, can we somehow get in there and turn entertainment into edutainment? I personally think the answer is yes, although it will require tremendous amount of resourcefulness on our parts, on our team's part. Your thoughts?
Most definitely. Early on, I remember Chuck D had a internet channel called Rhapsody. I think it was
hmm
called Rhapsody. And they were very progressive. In addition to other artists, they had like a daily soap opera. And I'm just pointing this out not to say that I was promoting that.
hmm
I'm saying that what he did, what he was able to do, but it didn't last long. And
hmm
that's been one of our major problems. we come up with ideas and we put them out there, but oftentimes they don't last that long, primarily because the Europeans, the Euro-Americans have more resources and they can replicate it. And quite naturally, they don't have the love of our people or the intent that we have. They just can just put any old kind of junk out there, and
Mm-hmm.
conscious and material or edutainment, goes by the wayside because we lack the resources, or we think we do.
That's right. And you mentioned that they had a drama program on. Someone did just ask a question. What are your thoughts on micro dramas and vertical dramas? I think they're talking about serializing dramas as edutainment or entertainment. We're seeing that a lot on YouTube. I
Yeah,
personally, I see it more as entertainment, but what I'm seeing is not very inspiring to a person who's strictly, I'm Pan-African about sovereignty and development.
or just content, just quality of content. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you see that on these reels. So keep in mind their program is to minimize our attention span. So remember how when YouTube, Facebook, and all they first came out, you couldn't have, I think it was more than 10 minutes of a video. Then they were able
Mm-hmm.
to, then Vimeo came out and then you could put a whole film up there. So I went with them. But now with TikTok and some of these other things, it's back to the short attention span. And again, the
Mm-hmm.
content is goofy. Most of it is nonsense, and it reinforces the depravity of this Western society as it becomes more and more immoral, or even to the point of being amoral.
Mm-hmm. A couple of comments have come in. Queen Mother Kashiba writes, um, what regarding U.S. troops in Nigeria, that's getting too close to Niger, as France wants most of all Niger and Mali back into its orbit. That's something we have to stay ever vigilant of. Our attention span is apparently so short that we cannot connect to themes that were very important to us just a few months ago. But getting France out of West Africa should be amongst the highest priority for the global African family for the foreseeable future. But then the African Union is not cooperating with us because the African Union still gets a lot of its funding from the European Union, and from France is a very important part of the European Union. And I can't remember, I was checking on these figures for some time, but African the African Union is getting many billions of dollars from European Union. And personally, I think that source of funding is very, or it would be euros. They're getting euros from European Union. I think that that's all corrupted.
Right. So what they did, remember we talked about what they did to Gaddafi. Well, where are the
Mm-hmm.
people thinking like Gaddafi on the continent? You have the Sahel region of Mali, Niger, and I forgot the other, Burkina Faso, and maybe Chad or some of the other countries. They're trying to stifle that. They're trying to neutralize that because they don't want free thinking and resourceful African leaders coming together and having a unified approach to governance, to resource management, and um, real genuine progress. I'm not just talking about mimicking Europeans or Europe. Progress in terms of human sustainability, where we can feed ourselves nutritious foods, we can control our own agriculture and resource management. They don't want that they being the international banksters, the uh, the globalists, and even the imperialists. I mean, it doesn't matter what their bent is. They don't want to see a united or righteous Africa.
Hmm. I just looked up in the background. I'm looking at the how much money does the EU spend annually for the AU budget, African Union budget? And it says here for 2025, AU partners, all external donors combined, including the EU, are expected to fund about 58.1% of the AU's total approved budget of roughly 608 million US dollars, not euros, US dollars, with member states covering about 32.9%. The rest is internal or other sources. Within that external share, the EU is repeatedly described by both AU and EU as, quote, by far the largest international partner to the AU. And so that says that substantial portion of the externally funded 58.1% comes from EU mechanisms and EU member states. And so we're talking about we're dependent. There is this dependency of the African Union, and Africans in America, with reportedly $1.93 trillion in consumer spending in 2025, could take over that funding if we could only come up with a plan of what to do with Africa. If Africa becomes loyal to us primarily, as it is right now, because African Americans, Afro Brits, Afro Canadians, and Africans across CARICOM are not taking responsibility. They are primarily, the African Union is primarily loyal to the EU. And they've got to find a way to keep that money coming in. I'm sorry to say that.
Well, but they've also seen, again, they've seen any attempts by individual African leaders or African leaders who think like, say, Gaddafi, or you see what they're doing in the Sahel region coming with this, or even East Africa, where they're trying to come up with a broader based solutions to their problems, regional problems, regional based solutions to these problems. The Europeans and the former colonialists and imperialists, that's the last thing they want. They don't want to see
Mm-hmm.
a BRICS type organization in Africa. You see what's going on behind the scenes right now. You have BRICS responding to some of the things that the United States is doing with the Shanghai Cooperative Organization, which is in Eurasia. They're responding. They're doing some things, and it's just a matter of time before they do joint military cooperation, and just have a whole program for that. They don't want to see that develop in Africa. And I think what Traore and some of the people in the Sahel, that's what they're moving toward. It just takes time. What they need to do is
Yeah.
start collecting, because Africa has for millennia has been the place to go for gold. Start collecting gold and building a gold-backed, at least regional currency, so we can be players in the game theory. And that's what the BRICS Plus people are doing. And that's why
Mm-hmm.
the United States is petrified. That's why they're doing what they're doing, because they see, in addition to that, they see the de-dollarization that the BRICS Plus alliance is engaged in. And then they know if they're successful in that, it's all over.
Mm-hmm. I must say, and I want to say thank you to you in the global LIB family. I must say, since we've been on the air, I have sold 4 copies of the new book. And I'm very proud of you for standing up. No, 3 copies of the new book. So we're going to do the best we can to keep the word out We need not 3 copies. We need 3,000 copies as soon as possible. That 3,000 copies will allow me to get LIBRadio and Conscious Rasta Press on track for at least a month or two. Even though I may not be able to pay my back bills, but that's okay. We're going.
Well,
We
I
are
mean,
always moving forward, even when we're moving sideways.
well, the one thing about this, when people tune in and they listen to you and they hear you talking about, they see the creative work, but they also hear the backstory, the
Hmm.
economic backstory, what it takes. They don't fully know what it takes to do what you do and how you've pulled all this together, but the little bit that you share with them shows that this is not some kind of fly by night organization. It's a guerrilla organization, meaning
Hmm.
that you're using your resources the best that you can, keeping in mind that the curse of black media, that you know our adversaries are not going to support you. If they
Hmm.
do, they're going to extract, and they want to demand a whole lot of things that you may not be willing to give or may not want to give up.
Hmm. Excellent points that you make. We are live and direct. We love hearing from you, our listening audience. Let me double check over here and see if any comments are coming in on the YouTube. And I don't see any new comments coming in. Eddie McCrory, we have you in the house. We acknowledge you. We appreciate, love you. And looking at the Rumble, we do have this comment from Queen Mother Kashiba. She's 2 comments. One, could you link up with a black college? Howard is one that has a film making department. That's a good suggestion. I cannot dismiss it. Um, wish I were in the D.C. area where Howard is located, because I could then haunt the campus like I used to do with campuses, UCLA, USC, Cal State University, Long Beach, in Southern California. I haunted the campuses. People thought I was a student at Cal State University, Long Beach, because I was there every day for times in the library, delving deep into their health research books. But we could do something. It's hard for me to get access to HBCUs. Baba Juniors, you have a background in HBCUs. What is the issue? Why is it so difficult for us to remain in contact with progressives on these HBCU campuses? I know they do exist, at least I think they do exist.
Well, they have their gatekeepers, and
Hmm.
they're also in stiff competition for money. You see Gates and Bezos, their wives were giving out millions of dollars, and so some of these HBCUs are attempting to get those dollars. And again, it's still, they're not willing to offend white people or make white folks feel uncomfortable. So they'll probably have to do a jig to get some of that money. And there's some, quite frankly, unfortunately, the leadership is not progressive or transformative. A lot of it is just reactionary. And unfortunately,
Hmm.
that is the case for a lot of HBCUs. It's also unfortunate that there's internal infighting between the president and the board, or the trustees, or whatever governing board they call themselves, and even alumni, because that's my experience with my alma mater. Number one is the leadership is not uh, progressive, it's not transformative. It's a state-owned school, and you got to remember a lot of the HBCUs are state-owned or state-controlled. Even the private ones, a lot of them are religious affiliated. So it may be the AME Church or the Methodist Church, or some Baptist or whatever. So they don't want to they can't run afoul of those people. So there are any numbers of reasons why HBCUs are in the shape they're in and why they are not as progressive as they should or could be. And we just
Mm-hmm.
have to familiarize ourselves with them and then figure out, okay, which one would be more amenable to sitting down with you and coming up with, say, okay, let's see how we can collaborate with some things. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
for me, if I were you, see if you can become an adjunct professor somewhere. Because nowadays with
Mm-hmm.
distance learning, with virtual learning, that would be kind of easy.
Yeah, not a bad idea. I had plans on becoming an adjunct professor when I got to Kenya as well as in Ghana. So yeah, that's a good idea. I'm going to go ahead and see what I can do about that. So the question arises from Queen Mother Kashiba. And thank you, Queen Mother. We do really appreciate your contribution to us. She asked some tough questions. Is the root a good source for information? It's on the internet. It's mostly entertainment. So I pulled up the root for today. I'm going to list the articles I see on the front. I think you know why we're laughing. Here's what's on the cover of the root today. Titles. Check out our favorite books by black authors that are all about love. Titles. How Detroit's racial history paved a comeback. I didn't know Detroit was coming back. Trend. Maybe you're single on Valentine's Day because you listen to social media. Trend. No, another 15 of the cutest iconic celebrity black love stories. Headline. Messy new details emerge in ROHOA star Candy Burris told Todd Tucker divorce timeline. Title. 15 best hip hop love songs for Valentine's Day. Title. Why the bob hairstyle might be making a comeback in 2026. I think you can get it. In the mood for black love films as Valentine's Day, we got you. So personally, I don't think the root is reliable enough. We're talking about trending Valentine's Day. Love is a beautiful
Yeah.
thing.
Well,
A
but
look at the
see,
fascinating love story between Diana Ross and Berry Gordy. It goes on. Love's a beautiful thing, but it ain't enough. It ain't
right.
working for us.
But the thing is, again, it gets back to what Franklin uh, E. Franklin
E. Franklin
Frazier
Frazier?
wrote. Yeah, E. Franklin
Mm-hmm.
Frazier wrote in the Black Bourgeoisie when he looked at the black
Mm-hmm.
press. Then decades later, Amos Wilson in his Blueprint for Black Power looked at the black press and came up with the same observation, meaning there had been very little change. And so what we're seeing here is a continuation of that. I get it some kind of way. I got on their list, so I get it a couple of times a week. And very real, there's no analysis in there. There's no analysis of what is going on, even within the cultural realm. Any serious
Mm-hmm.
analysis. It's all about celebrities. It's all about personalities. It's all about cult. And most alarming, it's all about continuing the mindset of the Eurocentric orientation. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
it's black, but it's not black. If you know what I mean, it's not
Mm-hmm.
African. It's not significant. It's not deep. There's no deep thought going into that, other than to figure out,
Yeah.
okay, what can attract the most clickbait, the most eyeballs, and support, because it's serious. It's not serious.
That's right. Um, and when they do tell you a serious story or one that has a basis to become serious, they kind of trivialize it. I'm looking at a headline here. report finds chemicals used in certain black hair products will sicken you, maybe literally. Well, I don't think that that's quite telling the story that these chemicals of women are saturating their hair, their skin with, and men increasingly, are cancer causing. And cancer is now skyrocketed to the point where 40.1% of U.S. population is expected to develop cancer in their lifetime. I don't think that that headline gives me an indication that this is a very, very dangerous thing that African American women have gone into, putting other people's hair on their head and all kind of chemicals, etc. Canacolin. I don't think that they understand it. Maybe they need me to be contributing articles. Maybe that's not the worst idea. No, I think my articles might be too hard for them because I'm like
Well,
zero tolerance.
no, your artists will be too deep. I was talking to my cousin, and he was asking me about a newspaper that I wrote for, and hadn't written for them for maybe about 2 years now. So I was telling him, okay, well, I'm coming back. You'll see an article next week. And he was saying, yeah, but one of the things, your articles were really deep, and not to be self-congratulatory or trying to pat myself on the back, but he's right. Compared to a lot of the stuff that's in the paper, I offer more analysis, more challenges. Just don't take my word. Check this out. Check this site out.
Hmm.
And it's like the root is very superficial. And I don't know I didn't look at the Richmond Free Press or the Scanner, but I would dare to say a lot of that's what they put out is what we just talked about: entertainment, sports, superficiality. I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, no, you're right. Entertainment, sports, superficiality, celebrity. It's all about the cult of celebrity. And when it comes to politics, it's lightweight because it's all anti-Republican Party and pro-Democrats. No matter
Right.
how bad the Democratic Party leadership is, no matter how bad their policies, and I mean, I'm not
But
going to say
guess
anything
what?
good about Republican policies, huh?
But the thing is, they've sold out to the Democrats. But when you look at those papers, and I had a
Hmm.
talk with the publisher of the paper I was making reference to, because she called me and asked me to start writing for him again.
Hmm.
Even with that, the Democrats don't support them, and you have elections coming up in Pennsylvania and in Philadelphia.
Hmm.
That paper doesn't get any support. You got a primary coming up. They're not going to get any support from the various candidates. She said she had a meeting with. She's trying to get a meeting with Sherelle Parker, who's the mayor of Philadelphia. Even if she has a meeting, all they're going to do is throw her some crumbs, if that.
Hmm.
They don't get or she talk about the white PR firms. They say, well, we don't need you. Imagine that, and like what, and I reminded her, my experiences when I was brokering time on a radio station. I would go to certain places in the black community. They call them stop and goes, where you go and get the beer and cigarettes and all that kind of stuff. And they told me, well, we don't have to advertise. Your people, and these were owned by either Asians or Ashkenazim. Well, the people are gonna come. We don't have to advertise. Why should we
Hmm.
advertise on this thing? It's only one time. It's only one program. We're not gonna be buying time spaced out throughout the day on the station. It's just for your. And anyway, people are gonna come, and
Mm.
that they were right.
Yeah. Well, something's going to change. If
Well,
change is constant, it's ever happening. What is happening is the change is the frog in the pot of water. And the African culture in America is that we are the frog in a pot of water. And for those who don't know about that story, the water is gradually heating up very slowly, and the frog doesn't realize it's in danger until it's too late.
Well, that's a good analogy. The other analogy is the one about the scorpion and I think it's the frog.
Mm-hmm.
The scorpion asked the frog to take him across the creek or the river. And the scorpion and the frog said, "Nah, you're poisonous." And no. Everything is cool. We're cool. Then when it gets almost to the other side, the scorpion stings him. He's like, "Why did you do that? We're gonna die." He said, "Hey, I'm a scorpion. That's what we do." And so the reality is, based on our history, we should recognize these patterns. I'm a big proponent of pattern recognition.
Mm-hmm.
We should recognize these patterns. This is the pattern. This is why the advertising model has been difficult. So what are we going to do to change that? What other options do we have, and what types of policies can we come up with that would generate some support for us, given the advertising model has not worked, or depending on the European for advertising dollars hasn't worked?
Mm-hmm. I'm reminded by what you're saying of the critical need for us to learn game theory. Personally, I think that we can best learn and utilize game theory by learning it in mass, all together. Maybe that could be a point where black media could understand we have a commonality of purpose. We're gonna have to pull together all of our resources in order to survive. Is that this game theory, somewhat at all points of contact or all points of leadership, let's say governance, needs to be at a meeting or whatever where we're teaching game theory. It could be even just a weekend symposium someplace where we're learning game theory. We would at least learn the importance of us knowing game theory. And so therefore, the individuals can then take it upon themselves to study it as far as their research will go. I wanted to start a class teaching it, but I think I gave up on teaching the class. As I was assembling the material to teach, I said, there's no way in the world. I cannot trust investing this time in promoting this class when so few people are going to want to work this hard to understand what is happening in the world insofar as game theory. Your thoughts?
Well, if you don't do anything, nothing will get done. Now, I'm not saying that you have to take the burden on to teach game theory, but we need to continue to promote it, get people to understand that this is a analogy of what's going on in the world, and familiarize ourselves so we can begin to identify the players. Now, a lot of the players have surrogates. There's other people really pulling the strings or providing the money, the funding, or the agenda. But nonetheless, we need to know that things just aren't happening randomly. This stuff that, yeah, Trump is crazy, but if you understand dark enlightenment and you understand the Zionist greater Israel, if you understand technocracy, you can see who are the forces and the players behind him and what's going on the playing field. If not, you just say, well, he's just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the national arena today, we're black. I mean, at least back in the 80s, you had Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton and Louis Farrakhan. So you had something. We're ignored to the point they're not even on the stage, or their successors or their progeny. And I don't necessarily mean their sons and daughters. I mean the people who following in their footsteps or their legacy. Where are they? What's happening? Is it just our
Mm-hmm.
ignorance, or is it just that they're being shut out? They don't have access to the levers of awareness or media like they once did.
Mm-hmm. All right. Queen Mother Kashiba sends a note. Goodbye for now. Must leave early today. Great show today. Thank you for being with us, beloved. We always appreciate you. King Jason just joined us. King Jason, aka the Snotball. How much are African nations paying to France? I don't know the answer to that question, but it's not like they're directly paying France, but France has its tentacles very deep in the African economies. Do you have any kind of an educated response to that question?
I have no idea what the exchanges are. I know at one point there were a lot of Francophile nations in Africa who were using France's currency, or they were tied to France's currency. So I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if that's still the case. You still have Africans who've been trained by Europeans. And on one level, in ancient times, there were legitimate exchanges. Say maybe the Arabs and the Africans, they respected each other. They respected the what was going on. Maybe it's at some of the, say, the Songhai or Mali or Ghana, whatever, and people respected it. Well, I don't think that's the case anymore. It's more
Mm-hmm.
of they want to exploit what we have. If they admit that we have genius, they just want to exploit it. They want to control it. And
Mm-hmm.
this is part of the pushback that some of our African leaders are find themselves caught up in, where they have to figure out what's best for their people, then fight off all the bribes and the honey traps, all the kind of things to try to compromise them, and then are they able to hold up?
Mm-hmm.
Because all this
King
stuff is going
Jason,
on.
yeah, King Jason the Snowball continues. The French are slick. They never really leave anywhere. Further, he says, I really believe they have achieved some level of AGI. I don't understand what AGI stands for. Nobody in that administration is smart enough to make some of the moves they've pulled off. Um, yeah, there's something going on. I don't really know how to respond to your question. We do know the French are very slick. They're very strategic. I would venture to say it's probably a good chance to rather advanced
Uh,
in game theory, and
I
in
knew
that
I'd heard
game
that.
theory,
AGI is artificial general intelligence,
okay,
and it possesses supposedly human-like cognitive abilities, enabling it to understand, learn, and apply knowledge across a wide range of domains without being limited to specific tasks. AGI would have the capacity for common sense reasoning and autonomous learning in diverse situations. That's the definition of AGI. I knew I
okay.
heard
So
that somewhere.
he says it's just that it did confirm artificial general intelligence. I'm referring to the Trump administration, and the Trump administration and intelligence. That's kind of hard for me to reconcile.
That's an
Although
oxymoron.
it is an oxymoron, although we have to recognize that Donald Trump, with all of his inadequacies, is only representative of the open face of what this administration is all about. When we talk about what's behind Donald Trump, We cannot dismiss the level of technocracy behind him, beside him, and surrounding him that's propping him up, arm up his spine that's holding him up. And it's kind of hard to reconcile Donald Trump and intelligence game theory. We do know America may be the best player of game theory that has arisen since World War II, although I would say that nowadays China appears to be better at playing the games of strategic competition than is the United States.
Well, I'd ask you to consider Vietnam. There may be one or two others. They just don't have
Mm-hmm.
the. Remember, China was able to do what they did because they had supporters who were willing to get them into the World Trade Organization. They were able to get them most favored nation status. And when they opened their borders to a direct foreign investment, that helped them.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I don't think Vietnam and some of these other countries have had that level of cooperation with the West or with outsiders. Yet
Mm-hmm.
they are rebuilding their economy. They're a viable play. They are viable players in the East,
That's
in
right.
Asia.
And when it comes to Vietnam, Singapore, and to some extent, even though I kind of hesitate when I say Korea, because they have really gone way too far with their Western cultural ideologies. But when we look at some of these countries of the East, I think they are good countries that we could, would, should be emulating many parts of their self-governance. In my book, 2016, the book came out, The Reparations Made Practical. I did point out Lee Kuan Yew, the president of Singapore, for a long time. He has now gone on to the ancestral realm. But Lee Kuan Yew was a model of the kind of authoritative leadership, single party leadership, that we as Africans would do well to emulate. There is only one African leader that I see as emulating Lee Kuan Yew. That is Paul Kagame of Rwanda. And Rwanda is the safest and cleanest African country regarded by everyone who tells me about it.
Well, part of our challenge is we've bought into notions and concepts of the West. In other words, they point to democracy, even though they've really never had a truly representative government because it's difficult. But African people, we invented governance, whether it was what they call stateless societies, whether it was called the divine king, the chiefs, and they don't even. I've been reading and studying stuff. They get the whole notion of divine kingship all wrong. We say
Mm-hmm.
ASS backwards. I mean, it's just saying stuff they have no clue what it really means. And I'm saying all this to say that there are forms of social organization, because that's all civilization is, and part and parcel of that is governance. We invented all of that, yet here we are trying to fit into this rubric of the Western world, and that's one of our problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're going to have to begin to wrap it up. We have been having a great conversation today. I do agree with Queen Mother Kashiba. This is one of our better programs, especially because we have solutions now we're putting on the table. And I look forward to working together with as many of you who will work with me. We're continuing our Black History Months. You know, we merged February and March together to tell the world's longest history. And I'm telling this history from my own journey. And that my journey has been the Conscious Rasa reports. I think through the development of these Conscious Rasa reports, it has been the evolution of myself as a representation of the African genius that we've known since the beginning of civilization, Imhotep, etc. And we continue that pattern. You and I, Ubuntu, we are undeniably in this together.
That's correct. And because we understood and we overstand, like you're saying, and some other people, I think some 5%ers, I think they use that term,
Mm-hmm.
that the universe is intentional. It has purpose. It's designed. It's not random. There's no just out of the blue explosion like the white boys try to make it like. Um, it is ordered. There's Ma'at, Ubuntu. Ubuntu is not just personal interaction and relationship. It's a universal concept. Stop and
Mm-hmm.
think about it. I exist because the universe exists. The universe exists because I exist, because the creator is in the universe and the creator is in us. So it becomes a much broader construct than just human beings. It's the whole cosmic order. And that's what Ma'at
Mm-hmm.
is. So we need to cultivate that, get into that, what Jacob Carruthers called African deep thought. And
Mm-hmm.
once we immerse ourselves in that, I think we'll have the confidence to solve effectively and efficiently solve a lot of the problems that we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Let's go ahead. Let's put a cap on it. We are right at 2 hours, and it's been a good show today. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share with your Alibi family before we move forward, Baba Juniors?
Now, I just want to thank our viewers and listeners for their participation. We don't have the phone lines, and which is can be a good thing, because sometimes I remember you used to get caught up with what's the brother out of New York? He used to get
Uh, but that was a he,
Baye.
Baye, brother Baye. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
miss I miss brother Baye because he was challenging, although it was like right on the edge of belligerence.
Well, but I mean, because there were like four of us on the panel and him, and he
Mm-hmm.
was asking questions, and the four of us had diverse backgrounds and diverse worldviews and perspectives. So, but the them writing their questions, sharing their experiences, sharing their knowledge is what makes this program great. So I would
That's
encourage
right.
them to continue to do it, tell a friend, promote it, and by all means be supportive.
That's right. And I want to thank you all for tuning in today. From the bottom of my heart, from the top of my heart, from the middle of my heart, I am because we are. And that's what we do here on the LIB Radio family, LIB TV, and Living and Back. Thank you, Baba Juniors, for another great, great program. Your contribution undeniably is so, so very valuable. And we're so grateful that you were with us. Hopefully, Brother Dwara will be with us again next week. Thank you for all
All
you
right.
do for all of us, my dear brother. And on that note, I want to thank you, our listening audience. We would be nothing if not for you. So to you, Brother Eddie, and to that Eddie's on the YouTube, and to everyone, King Jason, the KA, the Snotball, Queen Mother Kashiba, to we have some new listeners today, and it's great to have you with us. Silver Oracle asked some great, great questions. Baba, Brother Juma is in the house. Thank you all for all you do for Africa One. Ashe, I am, because we are, and we are living in black.com. Peace and prosperity to each and every one of you.